Welcome back. Here's some news of what's on.
First of all, we have some musical items. Risley Operatic Group are performing Bizet's Passion Flower, the story of Carmen, at the Intimate Theatre, Palmer's Green, from 14th to 18th of October. The time, 7:30 every evening, and the tickets are £3, £3.20 and £3.50, with a reduction of £1 for old age pensioners and children, except for Friday and Saturday evenings, which are full price for all. Booking through the Intimate Theatre box office, telephone 01 886 5451 or 5452. For jazz enthusiasts, there's currently a series of weekend concerts in the foyer at the Barbican. The last concerts are on Sunday the 28th of September. From 12 to 2:30 p.m. you can hear Coup d'Etat, the Latin jazz and pop band, featuring vocalist Mandy Bell. Then, from 3 p.m. till 5 p.m, the High Society Syncopators, a young 5-piece ensemble, will be playing the popular hits of the 20s and 30s, including songs by Fats Waller, Hoagie Carmichael and Jelly Roll Morton. Admission is free and you don't need to book. And now for a theatrical item. The Phoenix Theatre are presenting as their entry in the Enfield full-length play festival Stevie, based on the life of Stevie Smith, the poet who lived in Palmer's Green. The dates, 24th to 27th of September, and the place, Millfield House Arts Centre, Silver Street, Edmonton. Tickets for this are £2.50 each, £1.50 concessions, plus 25p audience club membership. Tickets are available from any Enfield library, or phone 886 0855 evenings and weekends. On Saturday the 27th of December there's a footpath walk, described as a circular walk starting from the Odeon Cinema, Barnet. Start footwear and protection against the weather are recommended. This monthly walk is free, but it's hoped that non-members will want to join the Enfield Preservation Society. Among classes and clubs holding meetings in the next week, there are a 20-week WEA course on the later Romantic music by Ivan Hewitt at Enfield Baptist Church, Cecil Road, starting on the 24th. Fee is £36, or 2 instalments of £18. OAP is £24. If you're interested, contact Henry Canton, telephone 360 5306. Among the clubs, there's Howard Hall Senior Citizens Club, which meets on Mondays from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. at Howard Hall, High Street, Ponders End. For information on this, contact Mr. Richards, telephone 807 7059. Also, there's the Neighbourhood Centre at Holy Trinity Hall, Queen's Avenue, Green Lanes, Winchmore Hill. For this, contact 882 4549. And another neighbourhood scheme at St Peter's Church, Grange Park, Vera Avenue, which meets on Tuesdays from 9:30 to 11:30. For more about this neighbourhood project, contact 882 4549. Enfield Jazz Club meets on Fridays from 8:30 to 11:30 p.m. at Howard Hall, High Street, Ponders End. This is £1.50 including membership. If interested in this, contact 366 2244, extension 230. Now, after what's on, we'll go over to Harvey, who will continue with the news items.
The voices and prayers of All Saints Church parishioners will be carried across the world this week. The BBC World Service crew were at the Edmonton Church on Sunday to record a special celebration service, which saw perhaps the largest gathering of dignitaries the borough has ever seen. There was a continuous flow of official cars as the 9 High Commissioners, the borough's 3 MPs, Lord Graham of Edmonton, high-ranking clergymen, the Lord Lieutenant of London, the Mayor of Enfield and the Chief Scout arrived at Church Street, Lower Edmonton. Packed inside the church were parishioners from the surrounding Edmonton churches and 250 scouts and guides, smartly dressed in their uniforms, standing beneath their banners. They were later inspected by the Chief Scout, Commissioner Robin State. Organiser Anthony Roy opened the service as the recording began, welcoming listeners from the 5 continents, a potential audience of more than 100 million. That was followed by an address from the Most Reverend Lord Archbishop of the Central Province of Africa, Kotso Makulu, who flew in specially for this service, marking the church's 850th anniversary. Although fluent in English, he gave the blessing in Swahili. The lessons and prayers in the service were punctuated with song and music conducted by All Saints Vicar, the Reverend Barry Oakes, from the 40-strong Tottenham Calvary Church of God in Christ choir, backed by Edmonton's Latimer School Orchestra. A lesson was read by Jamaican-born Dora Mitchell, now an Edmonton parishioner. After the service, which will go out on shortwave 5 times this Sunday, church members and helpers provided refreshments for the congregation. It was hoped that a member of the royal family would have been able to attend, but unfortunately their packed schedules prevented this. Instead, the Lord Lieutenant of London, Colonel George Darcy of Bush Hill Park, attended to represent them. Such was the huge crowd for the service that Latimer Junior School across the road was taken over to provide refreshments. A collection of £187 taken at the service is to be sent to the people of Botswana. Although we need money for the restoration of the church spire, they are much more deserving than we, commented Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy said he now hopes to hear from All Saints churches from around the world after an appeal on the World Service for them to get in touch. It is hoped they can swap experiences and tales.
Brian Barnett Grammar School head, John Pearman, was granted unconditional bail by Barnet magistrates on Monday when he appeared to face a charge of assaulting a 13-year-old pupil. Pearman of Hamlet Court Village Road, Enfield, will appear in court again on Monday, September the 29th. And Kingsmead Parents Association has now been replaced by the Friends of Kingsmead School Association. All ex-pupils and staff are welcome to attend the first annual meeting on Tuesday, September the 30th, at 8 p.m. at the school in Southbury Road, Enfield. Firemen rescued a householder stranded behind a jammed bathroom door. The lock of the bathroom door at Ice's house, Upper Edmonton, had stuck in the locked position.
An Enfield teenager who admitted taking part in burglaries involving the theft of property worth over £15,000 was sentenced to 2 years youth custody at Wood Green Crown Court. Rhodey Moxham, aged 18 and employed of Gilbert Street, pleaded guilty to 3 burglaries and asked for a further 11 offences to be taken into consideration. He had previous convictions. Prosecuting barrister Mr. Walter Bilby said that Moxham was disturbed while burglaring an address in Albany Park Avenue, Enfield, on May the 8th. He was chased by a member of the public and when arrested by police admitted many burglaries committed in the locality between March and May this year. He was taken around the area by police and pointed out the address he had entered. His method of operation was to make sure the house was empty, break in and steal whatever valuables he could find. John Patrick O'Sullivan of Percival Road, Bush Hill Park, has been jailed for 6 months after being found guilty on 3 charges of financial deception in a trial at Kingston Crown Court. He pleaded not guilty. If you've lost some records, a racing cycle or a set of golf clubs, they could be waiting for you at Enfield Police Station. These are just some of the items contained in the property section. A selection of pendants and rings has also been found in Durrance Park. Anyone who believes any of these items may belong to them, or has lost anything recently, should ask for the property officer at Enfield Police on 01 367 2222.
A man cycled into Enfield recently as part of a drive to raise money for Dr. Bernardo's homes. Paul Baker stopped at the Nuffield Hospital and Cavell Drive, Uplands Park Road, as part of a tour of the country's 32 Nuffield hospitals. He was met by Sister Bridie Harrison and other members of staff and presented with a cheque for £100 collected by the staff as sponsorship for one leg of his 1,500-mile journey. Matron Peggy Jones said, "Everyone here is delighted to be able to help Paul's tremendous effort. I would like to thank my staff for their support and wish him the very best of luck." Paul set off on his epic bike ride from Glasgow on August the 30th and finished at the Cleveland Nuffield Hospital where he works on Monday. He is hoping to raise around £1,500. A drizzling Sunday morning wasn't the best of times to invite people out for a fun run. But despite the severe autumnal conditions, over 100 brave athletes ventured out to raise funds for Enfield's mentally handicapped children. Although the numbers were only about half last year's, the organisers, Tanglewood Theatre Company, were pleased to find over £400 had been pledged from the runners' sponsorships. Neil Saunders collected a trophy for his first past the finishing post in the 8-mile event, with Sheila O'Connor receiving top prize as the first lady to complete the course. In the 4-mile section, John Golding took first place. The jog along the footpaths and bridleways through Forty Hall, Whitewebb's Park to Hilly Fields was marshalled by Tanglewood and representatives from the chosen charity, Enfield Society for Mentally Handicapped Children. The Cheltenham and Gloucester Building Society sponsored the run. And 500 Latimer School students raised more than £2,000 by pushing carrots through a 400-metre obstacle course with their noses. The students from Latimer School, Hazelbury Road, Lower Edmonton, organised the sponsored carrot crawl to furnish a flat for a young handicapped man in Enfield. Sixth former Alex Gage, who organised the event in July, thought the carrot crawl might catch sponsors' imaginations more than the usual walk or run. He was right. It was great fun, he said. We had to crawl under tarpaulins, dive for carrots in buckets, and throw them over high jumps. The school set a target of £1,500 for the event and raised an unexpected £2,350. Alex, who is 17 of London Road, Enfield, organised the carrot crawl with help from Andrew Bone of Lourdes Community Friends, who work for the disabled in Enfield.
Well, we now move on to sport, and begin with hockey. 4 members of Southgate Hockey Club, the national champions, have been named in the England squad for the 6th FIH World Hockey Cup, being held at Willesden on October the 4th to the 19th. They are Richard Dodds, Steve Batchelor, Sean Curley and John Shaw. The squad will be taking part in warm-up games against Germany in Hamburg and against Spain in Barcelona on September the 20th and 31st. England's opening match in the World Cup itself is against New Zealand in October the 4th at noon.
Spurs skipper Ray Clements played for 2 of the greatest managers in football history, Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley, in his Liverpool golden years. And when he says that he's impressed by his new manager David Pleat's early efforts at White Hart Lane, that must be recognised as a big compliment from one of football's deepest thinkers. Ray says all the players are enjoying working with David Pleat and Trevor Hartley. They have some very bright ideas and express them well. I know it's early days, and I've been in the game long enough to know not to make rash predictions, but we've had a promising start, and at the moment we are concerned with building a firm foundation which will be essential if we are to be successful come next May. As for his new role as captain, Clements has not experienced any problems now and is enjoying the new responsibility.
Netball. It was a sorry start to the season for Oakwood's A team on Saturday when a depleted side lost 33-21 to Nexus in their Polytechnic League match. Nexus showed superior ball skills which Oakwood were unable to match. The B team fared better in the Greater London League, leading from the start and eventually beating Wokingham 38-19 with a goal attack. Joanne Fox was particularly impressive. Oakwood C were involved in a close Greater London League tussle with Harrow, who led for most of the game, but were pegged back to 37-37 at the final whistle. Jean Ralph netting a penalty shot with the last throw of the game. Oakwood D beat Minchenden 41-26. Winchmore Hill Women's Hockey Club stays their annual trials at Pickett's Lock this Saturday and on Saturday week, September the 27th, starting at 1:15. Training is also well underway and continues at Ford's Grove next Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 6:30 p.m. New members are welcome.
Now rugby. A late dropped goal from fly half Nick Holmes gave Saracens an important John Smith Merit Table B victory over London Welsh, a team they have now beaten 4 times in 5 meetings. Torrential rain tried its hardest to mar what is usually a highly entertaining fixture on the Bramley Road calendar. But, despite a slippery ball and treacherous footing, both sides contributed to a quality game that was, if anything, a little lacking in adventure. The first quarter saw Saracens well in charge, with the Welsh rarely being able to venture out of their own half of the field. Still, points were not going to be given away lightly, and 2 desperate attempts on the Welsh line were thwarted when penalties were needlessly conceded. Saracens looked the smarter outfit in every department, so it came as a bitter blow when they conceded the first points of the game as half-time loomed. A series of blunders in defence led to Steve Pill picking up on the left wing and outpacing the Saracens' cover to score in the corner. The interval scoreline of 4-0 to the visitors seemed hard to believe. Worse was to come when the Welsh captain, Colin Price, converted a penalty goal shortly after the break, and things looked really gloomy when Mickey Grier left the field, causing confusion among the Saracens' forwards. The back row, however, finally found they had more room in which to manoeuvre, and, after missing 4 previous attempts, Lawrence Smith scored from a penalty to reduce the deficit. The score seemed to give Saracens renewed heart, and a penetrating run by full-back Steve Hancock, followed by a well-timed pass to Smith, allowed the burly winger to crash over the line and level the scores. Smith failed to make the conversion, and the match appeared to be heading for a draw, until Holmes sealed victory with his late drop goal. Saracens' second string, the Crusaders, completed a happy weekend for the club by defeating Welling 39-0.
It will be more than a year before the Swan Annex in Ponders End starts up as a centre for young offenders. While conversion works are carried out, the social services-run intermediate treatment programme will be transferred to a building in North Mall, Edmonton. Home for the past 3 years, Weir Hall has to be vacated by the middle of November to allow North Circular roadworks to begin. Deputy Director of Social Service, Jeff Prosser, said this week that the more practical pursuits like motorcycle workshops and woodwork would not happen at the temporary centre. We have to accept that things will have to wind down a bit, he said. Planning permission to use the office at 32 North Mall for 15 months as the IT centre is being sought in the next few weeks. Charges are expected to be laid this week against those arrested in the huge drugs raid on an Edmonton pub. Police forensic experts have confirmed that packaged substances seized during the raid on the Horse and Groom 2 months ago were cannabis and cocaine. 26 people were arrested when police swooped on the 4th Street pub. Codenamed Operation Bridle, the raid was the culmination of several weeks' undercover work by plainclothes detectives. Of those arrested, it is expected that 15 will face charges of supplying and possession. They were all remanded on police bail, while the drugs were sent to laboratories for analysis. Superintendent Buchan said, "It has been confirmed that it is all either cannabis or cocaine. The details are now with the Crown Prosecution Service, who will decide on the charges. It is a slow process, but I expect to reply in the next few days." And the Bristol riots have led to an attack on drug dealers from Enfield North MP Tim Egger. He said the dealers were an evil group living off the misfortune of others. And he told party workers, "We are fortunate that in Enfield we do not have a concentration of drug dealers on a similar level to that in Brixton or Bristol. However, we should not be complacent. I hear regularly from parents, teachers and members of the public about increasing drug misuse in the Enfield area."
Shopping trolley and wheelchair bandits will be taking over the streets, relieving shoppers of cash and food on Saturday. But it's all in a good cause. Enfield, Cheshunt and Waltham Cross Rotaract clubs are combining forces to organise the sponsored trolley push and hope people from the work centre will join in. The trolley and wheelchair bandits are collecting money in aid of the Friends of Enfield Work Centre for handicapped adults and for Chase Farm Hospital Radio. They are also collecting food for Christmas parcels for the elderly and old books for developing countries. The trolleys and their minders, all of whom will be in fancy dress, will leave the Bugden supermarket in Lancaster Road at 11 a.m. and then hare along Chase Side, the town, Silver Street, before finishing up again outside Bugden at 12:30 p.m. Anyone who'd like to lend a hand, Bugden have already agreed to lend the trolleys, or to sponsor a trolley, wheelchair or pusher, should contact Paul Gear on 3675008.
The fight to save Edmonton Town Hall from demolition has won support from overseas, from the Mayor of Edmonton in Canada in fact. He has sent a good luck message to Labour councillor Fred Jarvis, one of the leaders of the campaign. In his letter, the Canadian Mayor, Lawrence Decore, writes, "From this distance I am unable to know all the ramifications of the proposed action. But generally I feel that if older buildings can be economically used, it is important to try and keep them in the community to provide a sense of continuance and diversity. The Town Hall in Knights Lane has been threatened with demolition to make way for a new magistrates' court. At last week's full council meeting, officers were asked to investigate the possibility. But the controversial plan has brought opposition from many people, including Labour councillors and Edmonton MP Ian Twin, who wants the old building preserved. Last week, Councillor Jarvis accused the council of treating the people of Edmonton as second-class citizens. He said, "Surely it is not asking too much of the present Tory council to argue that it owes some historic allegiance to the people who were born in our now reside in this corner of the borough. Proud Edmontonians, and why not? It is true that the building has been allowed to run down and will need some renovation, as will all the Victorian buildings that the council have agreed not to demolish, those standing in what was once Highlands Hospital. We mourn the loss of the hospital, but it is rubbing salt into the wounds by suggesting that one group of Victorian buildings can remain in Enfield, and at the same time embark upon what I interpret as an act of vandalism in 4th Street, Edmonton."
Councillors are still waiting for expert advice over the future of fire-ravaged museum Broomfield House. A team of consultants are currently studying a list of options, and their advice will come before the Leisure and Amenities Committee in the near future. It is still a major bone of contention whether to restore the Palmer's Green building to its former glory, or demolish the charred remains and erect a new museum. A third option, to bulldoze the museum and landscape the site, has already met with considerable public disapproval. Councillor Roger Brooke, in charge of the committee responsible for Broomfield House, said a report was expected from the consultants soon. The structure of the building is not good. There is a very strong feeling for restoration, which is an extremely expensive option. To restore what is left would be very largely building a replica, which is not to everybody's tastes. Ultimately, any council decision will have to be approved by the Secretary of State, because Broomfield House has the status of a listed building. Councillor Brooke hopes there will be progress reports sometime before Christmas.
Here's a good advert for the Enfield Gazette, which bus driver Stan Ward calls his personal guardian angel. After the paper has stepped into his life 3 times, he figures someone up here likes him. The Gazette reunited Stan with his long-lost daughter, whom he hadn't seen for 25 years. The paper found him a job after he was made redundant at 56, and last Tuesday he found himself driving the Gazette bus, the 217B, through Enfield. "It's too many coincidences for me to cope with," he said. "It was enough of a miracle for the paper to reunite me with my daughter after 25 years. Then they found a job through the advertisements after I'd given up hope of a full-time job, and here I am, driving the Gazette bus. It's unbelievable." Mr. Ward, aged 60, was reunited with his daughter, Christine Richards, whom he had not seen since she was 8, when she wrote to the Gazette asking the paper to help find her father. The Gazette printed her story, and Hilda Mitchell of Morley Avenue, Edmonton, who went to Latimer School with Stan over 30 years ago, recognised him and got in touch. "I would never have seen the story because I live in Harlow now. It was a miracle Hilda remembered me. I hadn't seen her for 30 years. Then, in May, after 4 years of redundancy, Stan found a job with Sampson Buses through the Gazette's Situations Vacant column. "You found my daughter, you found me a job. I'm delighted to drive your bus," he told the paper.
Enfield's bottle recycling scheme is the biggest in London, and 952 tons of glass were collected from the 21 sites around the borough in 1985. The scheme is not only safer for dustmen and ecologically approved, it's also a money spinner. Last year, the council reaped a tidy £1,455 from the contractors, Cleanaway of Essex, who pay for every ton of glass they take to the recycling plant at Harlow. Borough engineer John Little said, any recycling initiative obviously relies on the public cooperation, and the people of Enfield have responded admirably. The scheme used to be subsidised by the GLC, but the North London Waste Authority, which took over in May, has refused to follow suit. Mr. Little said, the scheme has been successful and will continue, even though it's no longer subsidised.
A sports club for the disabled has received a £2,000 donation from the Capital Radio Help a London Child appeal. The money will help pay for 2 new wheelchairs for the members of the London Hawks Club basketball side based at Pickerslock Centre in Edmonton. Club treasurer Trevor Wingard of Winsford Terrace, Great Cambridge Road, Upper Edmonton, said the money provided an unexpected boost to funds. The club had written to many appeal organisations without success in the past. The club, which also fields teams in sports ranging from table tennis to snooker, attracts members from all over the London area and Cheshunt, Waltham Cross and Waltham Abbey. The demand for wheelchairs in the basketball team is high because of the battering they receive during competitive games. Chairs can cost up to £1,600 each. For more information on the club's work, contact Trevor on 01 807 2085.
Enfield police are still baffled over a huge antiques theft with no clues after 2 months' investigation. The £125,000 theft of furniture and antiques and the lorry in which they were stored happened near the Southbury pub, just off the Great Cambridge Road, on July the 10th. Since then, Enfield police have heard nothing about the whereabouts of either the vehicle or its contents. The property belonged to a couple who were about to emigrate to Australia.
The increase in house prices in Enfield reflects the 17.2% increase in Greater London in the past year. Peter Egan, manager of the Edmonton branch of the Leeds Permanent Building Society, said the national average price increase was 11.1%. Even the smallest house in Enfield now costs around £45,000, nearly double the national average for comparable housing.
That's all from this edition of the Talkie newspaper. Remember, we'll be going weekly in October. So now it's good night from Peter at the controls.
Good night. Harvey.
Betty.
Paul.
And Janet.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.